Right. Testing. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway. What on guys, and welcome to a new video on PC Building Simulator. Now, we haven't done a video inside PC Building Simulator for a while. We've done videos where we've been doing like tech review, sort of like explanation videos, and that's how PC Building Simulator as the base that we use to actually do those videos. But we haven't actually done PC Building Simulator, a video in this game properly for a while. So I'm going to break that habit today, and I'm going to do one. And what we're going to be doing is an updated version of my how to build a PC video. Only just because the last one that we did just took it. I watched it back and it was received quite well. It's got quite a few views and likes on YouTube. I watched it back and I'm thinking that video was awful. It was edited horribly. I hardly really explained much. So I'm going to do it again and I'm going to make a change. I'm actually going to do it properly this time. I'm going to try my best to anyway. So this is the sort of PC that we're looking at building today. Not exactly this, but something along these lines. So that's a bit of a hint at what we're going to be doing. I just wanted to say, right, you look at this PC and it says about $2,000, right? This PC is not going to cost about $2,000 to build. The way PC Building Simulator works, its pricing is based off of MSRP, and it's in American dollars as well. So if you're in the UK or Europe, the pricing difference is different because exchange rates are different. But the links that are going to be down in the description. So the piece that we're building today, I'm going to put in the description down below the specs of it, as well as Amazon links. And Amazon are very often cheaper to buy things. Like this 8600K, it says about 280. You can get it for about 190, 180, 190, maybe 200 quid on Amazon. So they're a lot cheaper on Amazon. It's just going off of the MSRP because that's the easiest way PC Building Simulator to do it, because that's the one where it's consistently the same price regardless of what the actual thing is. So first of all, we are going to get off and start with this case. Now this case is the NZXT S340, right? Now it's pretty much as basic a case as you're probably going to get for about 66 quid. It's really, when you're choosing the case, now if this is your first time building a PC, my biggest advice to you is buy your case first, or choose which case you're going to get first, and then build your PC around that case. Only because if you buy like a small form factor case and then you get like an ATX motherboard, it's not going to fit. So buy your case first and then use your case as a framework for what you're going to put in it, so motherboards, graphics cards, or whatever, because otherwise it might not fit. But really, with this case, like, this is an ATX, standard ATX case, so ideally it will fit most, if not everything in it. The only thing that it won't do is fit some custom grade water cooling. But we are going to put an AIO in it for the CPU. So it will fit there because there's two fan headers here, so we can stick a AIO in here, which we're going to do. But custom grade water cooling, you'll need something a bit bigger, a bit more advanced for that. So, because this is just basic, it's not, you know, anything major. And as long as you make sure you've got an ATX power supply shaft in it, which most of them do nowadays. So again, you should be okay with that generally. So anyway, first of all, we're going to go for the motherboard. Now the motherboard I'm going to go for, again, it's not like the most expensive one, but it does the job. It's the MSI Z370 Gaming Pro Carbon. And it's a Z370 board, so we can use 8th gen Intel chips, which we are going to use an Intel chip for this one, just because I know Intel's generation like naming system better than I do AMD, so I can sort of like, I'm not going to do over the odds like a massive like i9 2080 Ti system, because there's no point. You know, we're looking at how to build a PC, not which is the most expensive PC we can use. So we're going to go middle of the road, not budget, but not over the top. We're going to go in that little center bit. So we can use 8th gen CPUs here because it's a Z370 board. It has RAM speed up to 4,000 megahertz. However, we're not going to go that high because we are doing like middle of the road. We're not going to go to 4,000 megahertz worth of RAM. It is standard ATX, so it'll fit in this ATX case. And it is crossfire, so if you did want to add another GPU into it, in SLI, then by all means do so. But we're not going to do it here because there's no point. Now, the motherboard is the it's the spine of, well, it's basically the skeleton of the PC. Think of building a PC like building a human. So you got your case, which is your skin, what the it aesthetically looks like, right? So your skin, your face, your facial features and whatnot. That's what the case is. The motherboard is the skeleton, what everything is based off of. It sits there and it makes sure everything else functions as it should be, right? It is like, I would say the heart and the soul of the PC, but basically the motherboard is like the brain of the PC. It makes sure everything works. You know, you hear a lot of people saying that the CPU is the brains of the PC. It's not. It's the motherboard, more often than not. So now there's two things. Now if you watch this here, it's going to install these standoffs, and then it's going to install the screws. Now, depending on which case you buy, you may not have to install standoffs. So if you look at the back of the case here, we've got a number of standoffs already here, like the little gold things here. Some cases already have standoffs screwed into them. If that is the case, you just have to line up your motherboard and screw in the screws. If they're not already installed, you will have a box when you buy your case with standoffs and screws in them. So all you need to do is just screw your standoffs into the back keyboard. There'll be holes relevant to where they're supposed to go anyway, so it should be relatively straightforward. The next thing is the CPU. So the CPU we're going to go for is the i5-8600K, and in fairness, it's a very solid CPU. It's 4.3 gigahertz, even though it says megahertz, but that's just a PC Building Simulator's naming convention. I don't know why they do that, but anyway, there's neither here nor there. So it's 4.3 gigahertz at 6 cores, so it's a very fast CPU, and it's got a good number of cores for anybody who wants to do medium to maybe high gaming. But if you want to do really high-end gaming, then you're going to need a more powerful CPU. However, 6 cores it does a good job. You know, you could have you could be playing, let's say, Tomb Raider or like Star Wars Battlefront or Halo Master Chief Collection, and still have, let's say, a Chrome tab open at the same time because there's enough cores to do so. So it's a pretty decent CPU for that. However, if you do want to do what I do, which is more like game engine stuff, like content creator, so you want to do like Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Substance Paint, or Unreal Engine sort of stuff where it needs a big workload, I would advise getting the i7-8700K, because not only do you get a bit of a higher clock speed, but you get two more cores. Those added cores do make a hell of a difference when you're using when you're using that kind of equipment. So what we're going to next do is put on some thermal paste. Now, thermal paste is key. Thermal paste is the thing that easily makes heat transfer between your chip and the cooler much more effective. For some reason, it's just the way the materials work together, I think. But if you didn't have any thermal paste, the heatsink and the CPU won't transfer heat very well. It will transfer some heat, but not to the extent where the CPU is kicking off and it needs to be like taken out of itself and put into the cooler. So thermal paste basically makes that process even quicker. Now you need about they say about a grain of rice worth of like thermal paste, but I think it's about a pea. An average size pea is about all you need. Now there are some coolers, and this one, although it doesn't actually show it in the game, but I know because I think I've got this one at home. No, it's yeah. So we'll use the 1500i Pro. I've got the 120i Pro in my one. It's pretty much the same thing, but for better or worse, it's just, I think it's just mine's white instead of black. But my cooler already has pre-applied thermal paste, so in that case you don't actually need to put any more on because it's already on your cooler. Some of them do, some of them don't. I know Corsair and Cooler Master already have pre-applied thermal paste, but I think some of them, like ROG and maybe like oh, I can't think of any other manufacturers now. Never mind. But some other coolers don't have pre-applied thermal paste, but I know Corsair for certain does with their coolers. So we've got the cooler there. Now, if you would need to take some of these front parts off, don't be afraid. It is necessary, and it is pretty safe. Literally, it's just a case of just clipping it back on. You might need to put a bit of force on, but it's literally just a clip thing. You can see the clip being put on there. It's nothing to worry about. It's just the way the case is formatted. You often have to take the front panel and the air dust thing to actually screw the fans in. It's perfectly safe. It's not a massive issue. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do RAM. Now, in real life, I would have actually done the RAM first, because as you can see, the cooler cables actually get in the way of me installing the RAM a little bit, but for this video's purposes, it doesn't really matter. And again, if it does cause you a bit of an issue, you can always just take the coolers off of the slots and then stick the RAM in, and it'll be perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Gigabyte, I'm going to go for the 8 gig 2666 memory. Now the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to go 16 gigs as well, because we need, like, I think 16 gigs is becoming the more average. 8 gigs is always what I would consider to be the, like, normal for gaming, but now it's becoming more and more 16 gigs is what you need. Now I'm going for 2666. Now it is not the fastest RAM in the world. However, when we get into the motherboard's BIOS, we can overclock it to about 3000 megahertz, and it should work perfectly fine. So yes, it isn't like the fastest memory that you can buy in the world, but it is pretty good, and you can overclock it a bit more. Considering this motherboard goes up to 4000 megahertz as well. This memory will not go up to 4000 megahertz. You can try it if you want, but I don't think it will. So also we're doing dual channel because it makes the RAM faster. Now why, and it also has to be alternate. So it has to be one space, so RAM slot, space, RAM slot. That's how it needs to be. It can't be next to each other, it has to be alternate. I don't know why motherboard manufacturers do that, it's just the way that they go. Also, if you have 16 gigs of RAM, if you're playing really high-end AAA games, even with this CPU, which you probably could with certain ones, maybe not necessarily brand new ones like Watch Dogs Legions or like Halo Infinite maybe, but if you've got 16 gigs of RAM, you've got more like backup resources, so you can do more multitasking. So while cores in CPUs have cores to do multitasking, it also needs RAM to unload that multitasking onto. So having 16 gigs of RAM, if you're not going to be doing very heavy gaming, or going to be playing things like Minecraft or I don't know, some like Fall Guys maybe, or like Among Us or stuff like that, then 8 gigs of RAM will be perfectly adequate. But 16 gigs of RAM is really where you need to be if you're going to be playing things like Battlefront 2 or like new Star Wars Squadrons that's coming out soon, or Halo Infinite, and these new games you're going to need 16 gigs. And I really could probably put in 32. But considering this is a standard build and not a like over-the-top build, we're just going to stick 16 gigs in for the time being. Storage. Now we've got two options for storage. I'm going to put both of them in. First one is an SSD. There's a gigabyte one here. It's a 256 gig M.2 SSD. Now the M.2 SSD is going to be for the operating system, and that is because M.2 SSDs are quick as hell. Now, SATA SSDs, while they are quicker than normal hard drives, it's still not got that direct link to the motherboard, which gives them that snappiness. Because with SATA SSDs, it's still got to go through a cable, whereas with NVMe drives, they actually go straight into the motherboard, so it's even that much more snappier. Now, what we are also going to put in is a 2TB hard drive for our games, because a 256 gig SSD is not going to be enough to run a lot of games, if any. So we're going to stick that in as well. Now, what I could do is I could install an Intel Optane drive to increase the speed and reliability of this hard drive. But one, we don't have actually any Intel Optane drives in PC Building Simulator, and two, I don't actually know how to do it. So I don't actually know how to do it, so I'm going to leave that, for now, because it's not at the end of the world. The hard drive's good enough. Now, yeah, a hard drive's good enough for storing games. If you want to know how to do it, you can go and research it. You do it using an Intel Optane drive and RAID 0. There's plenty of YouTubers like Linus and Bitwit and those sorts of people who know how to do it themselves anyway. It can teach you quite easily how to do it, but I can't actually teach you how to do it, because one, I don't know how to do it myself, and two, I haven't got the means of doing it anyway. So next thing we need is a graphics card. Now I'm going to go for the 2060 Super. Now the reason why I'm going for the 2060 Super is because it's got that bit of flexibility where it's got that extra 2 gigs of video memory aside from the base, and it makes about 100 quid's worth of difference between prices as far as PC Building Simulator, because I don't know what it is in real life, but it's a bit of a price increase of about like 70-80 quid, I think. But that extra 2 gigs of video memory, you are going to see a massive difference with gaming, and because it's an RTX card, you will see you can use like real-time ray tracing and all that stuff. Intel DLSS and all that jazz come with it as well, so that makes it even better. Now, if you were, again, this is good for like basic gaming, so like Tomb Raider sort of thing, or maybe even you get away with Halo Infinite and like Watch Dogs Legions, the brand new games coming out. If you use your settings right, because this has got 8 gigs of video memory in it. But if you are going to do things like content creating, like Premiere Pro, Substance Paint, Unreal Engine, stuff like that, like I explained with the CPU, I'd advise you get a 2070 or 2070 Super, because that extra boost in clock speeds is going to help you massively in games, and also with rendering if you are going to be using Premiere Pro. But because we're just doing a basic gaming rig, I'm going to stick an RTX 2060 Super in there. What's next? Right, power supplies. Now, power supplies is a bit more complicated. First of all, you need to know what company you're going to go for. Now, anything that's 80+ certified, I would highly recommend. It could be bronze, silver, gold, platinum, whatever. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's at least 80+ certified bronze, you'll be perfectly fine. My PC has got 80+ certified bronze in it, and I've had no problems with it at all. Next thing is what wattage you should use. Now, there's a website called PC Part Picker, and all the parts that are in this game that I'm using for this PC build is in that game. Sorry, not in that game, on that website. Now, it'll give you, once you put all your specs in, it'll give you a wattage of how much power your PC is going to use, right? And let's say this PC makes about 400 watts worth of power. I don't think that is how much it'd be. It might be about 350, 370. But I always advise somebody go for 300 to 400 watts more than what is actually displayed that their PC is going to use. Because if you do that, that means then, one, it's not going to be your power supply is not going to be overloaded straight away, but it also means that you've got room to upgrade and a bit of wiggle room to add stuff in or upgrade stuff in the future that do take more power. Let's say you want to upgrade your CPU or your motherboard and that need a bit of extra power. You've got a bit more like unused wattage in your power supply to like take advantage of that. So let's say this PC is going to be, let's say, 400 watts by the end of it, right? So by using about double it, so 400 watts more, I would say about 850. I would probably go for 800, but there's an 851 there, so we'll go for that. ADATA is a really, really well-known company, so I'm not too particularly bothered with that. Now cabling. Cabling is what I think to be the hardest part of building a PC, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that tricky. So cabling. So we've got our SATA data here, which is that'd be a separate cable. Now this is also a modular power supply. You'll have two different types of power supplies. You'll either have a modular power supply, which would be like this. I think it's a modular power supply. Yeah, modular power supply. So you'll either have this, which is modular, which would be you have the power supply and the cable separate, which means you just have to plug them in in one end, in the other. It's just modular power supplies are more for people who want to have customized cables. But for the sake of this video, there's no need to do. I'm not making a video aesthetically pleasing PC. I'm just making a PC. But if your PC is non-modular, it's literally just in case you've got to plug the cable. You've got all the cables already plugged into the power supply. You've just got to plug them into the relevant slots in your PC. So cable. So we've got your SATA data. SATA data literally goes into a slot in your motherboard. Literally just this one's got 4, I think. 2, 4, 6. It's got 6. Right. Newer ones most probably have like 8 to 10. And this one's got 6. Right, which is perfectly fine. And you really don't need any more than like 4. If you've got an older case and you've got a couple of drives, you'll need a couple of SATA datas. But really, you shouldn't need any more than 2 or 3. So stick that in there. So that's the SATA data. This one is the SATA power, which is the one that goes into the power supply like that. This is the case connector. So this is what powers the actual case. So it goes from the power supply to the motherboard to the case. So that powers all of like your power reset switches and your like USB 2 cables and that lot. This is the pump cable, and that literally just goes into this fan header up here. This is a case fan, so you go into your case fan slots just here. There's another one here, and I'll plug you into that one. You can plug them actually into the fans themselves, but if not, there's other fan slots here, so you got like one here and one there. You can plug it into as well if you wanted to. You've got your CPU power cable, which is the one that goes into your the motherboard. No, not the motherboard, into the power supply, sorry. And also, this is also another thing. Power cables will only go in one way. You can't really see it here because it's not a very accurate representation because they're all the same shape. But power supply cable slots are actually different shapes if you look at them. Some are square, some have got little curves on the bottom of them or on the top of them. That's so you don't put it in upside down like by accident, because it is something that does happen. So cabling, don't worry about putting it in the wrong way. With things like fans, it doesn't particularly matter. The pump itself, obviously your power for your fan or pump, whatever it is you're using, doesn't really matter either. The ones that do matter, which is the ATX connectors or the like CPU power connectors or these PCI connectors, it does matter which way you put them in, but you can't put it in the wrong way because of the way the ports and the plug is shaped. So this is the ATX power, so this is the one that powers the actual, from the power supply to the motherboard itself, so that goes into the big block thing right there. And this is the two PCIe graphics card things. If you are actually really like concerned about cabling, I would advise going for a non-modular power supply. Just because it is easier, because you don't actually have to look at where the cables go in here. Now there is labels, you got your CPU VGA, you got your big motherboard block here. There's your SATA module one, so it's all labeled, so there isn't really, you can't really get lost necessarily. But if you are a bit confused about cabling, just go for a non-modular power supply, because half the job's basically done for you at that stage. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just put the side panel back onto the side of the PC, and I'm going to stick a USB drive in it. Now, before I stick a USB drive in it, because I don't want to install Windows for the moment, what I'm going to do is going to put on the PC. It boots up as you would do. We're going to go into the BIOS. Now, if we go into the BIOS, this is the CPU. Obviously, with this 8700K, it's an overclockable CPU. We're not going to bother any of that today because it's not necessary. So RAM overclocking, we can turn on XMP, but it stays at 2.4 gigahertz or 2400 megahertz. We want to, now bear in mind that RAM is actually says 2666, right? So that's what it's manufactured tested at. Now, the default is never going to be the same as the manufactured tested. So what you need to do is always need to change that yourself. Like my one is my RAM is 3000 megahertz worth of RAM. But when I plugged it in, it only showed was 2400. Now that's just because that's what it defaults at. So what you can do is you can put it up. You can put it up to 2667 if you wanted to. But I know that this particular RAM, because I tested it, can go up to 3000 megahertz and be perfectly fine. So if I save, so I can apply changes and restart. Make sure it's also set your boot drive is set as your M.2 PCI and not your hard drive. If you don't know how to change it, simply unplug, whether it be the SATA, the cable, the SATA data or the SATA power or both, out of your hard drive, and then your motherboard will only recognize your PCIe card and your M.2 card. And then once your Windows has been installed, then you can boot up, plug in your hard drive, and it will recognize it after that. So apply changes and restart. I'm just going to power this off for the moment. Now that we've done that, and I'm going to plug in a USB drive like that, and then we're going to go reinstall Windows. Right, so here's the Windows 10 installation. Now, we've got, now this will be dependent on between you and me. This will be different between you and me, really, because I've got the United Kingdom, that's the version that I downloaded. If you are in the United States, then it will show United States, or you can choose it from here or whatever country you might be in. But I'm in United Kingdom, so I'm going to choose United Kingdom. Make sure that's set, because that will affect your actual Windows 10 performance. Not necessarily Windows 10 performance, but the way it looks, because it will change the language and keyboard input methods to whatever keyboards you use. So let's go install, because that's what we want to do. Just wait for it to boot up, because this does take a while. Now this will take a long time, right, to do. So so there will be a lot of skipping and sort of like speeding up in this video, because it does take a while to install Windows. So just be aware of that. The time that it takes in this video is not how long it is going to take in real life. I'm going to speed this up because I'll be here for ages. This video will be about 2 hours long by the time this Windows 10 is finished installing. So activate Windows. You do need a product key. If you have got a product key, input it in here and then click next. If you don't, like me, I'm not going to activate this Windows machine because I'm not going to use it any more than like anybody else would, because it's a PC building simulator, PC virtual thing. So if you don't have a product key, you can go. If you don't currently have a product key, but you wanted to test to see if Windows 10 actually works, you can click I don't have a product key, and it will make Windows work without an activated license. You can use Windows 10 perfectly fine without an activated license. Just some personalization things you can't do inside of Windows 10. So it's perfectly fine. It'll install perfectly fine without the product key. You choose Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, depending on what your license key is. You can't activate Windows 10 Home without Windows 10 Pro. So you can't activate Windows 10 Home with a Windows 10 Pro license and vice versa. So make sure you choose the one that of the license key you're going to have, or when you install it, it doesn't particularly matter, but make sure you get the license key to which Windows installation you've installed, because it won't work crossways. So I'm going to just install Windows 10 Pro just because why not. So let's click next. Accept terms and conditions. If you want to read through it, then by all means. I know Microsoft's terms of use, and again, because it's a virtual PC, it doesn't particularly matter if there's use case. We don't want to upgrade because there's nothing to upgrade. That's more for, like, let's say you want to upgrade, you want to reinstall Windows but keep your files. But we've got no files to keep, so we're just going to go custom install Windows only. So there's only one drive there, so click next. And then it should just automatically go straight into copying Windows. Now, if you are doing this yourself, there may be a couple of different partitions. If there is, just delete the part. It won't let you delete the actual drive off the list, but just delete the partitions, because it just makes a mess in Windows 10 when you go. It slows it down a little bit. But again, if you're using M.2 SSD, it really shouldn't make that much difference. We shouldn't have to delete the partitions. But anyway, so it's installing Windows. So I'm just going to skip ahead or speed the video up, dependent, and I'll be back once it's in the next stage. Okay, so we're back. So I'm back now, and we've got to the next stage, which is basic. So we'll start with the region. So basically, you've got to choose which region that you're using, so whether it's United States, United Kingdom. I don't particularly see what the difference is personally, but I just do it United Kingdom anyway, to keep it as accurate as possible. Now these, so this is the right keyboard layout. So this is where it gets needed to pay attention a bit. So different countries have different keyboard layouts. Now the UK has a QWERTY keyboard. I think the United States has something different. I might be a bit wrong about that. But I know different countries like France, Spain, Germany, we got like Canadian and stuff like that. They all have different keyboard layouts, I'm pretty sure. So you just need to make sure that your keyboard is the right one. Mine's United Kingdom. I don't want to add a second keyboard layer. If you want to, then you can. I don't really need. I haven't got two different layers of keyboard, so I don't need to bother. I haven't got internet set up on this yet. On this, I'm not going to bother. You can do that afterwards in Windows 10 if you so much wish to, but I'm going to choose I don't have internet. Now, these next ones are crucial. This is I just need to continue with limited setup because I haven't got internet. I choose the name for this PC, Commander Prime, because why the hell not? Choose a member password, don't need a password. If you want to put a password on it, by all means, you need to put in a few security questions in case you forget your password, but I'm not going to bother because it's a virtual machine, virtual like PC sort of thing inside of the game. So this is where it gets crucial. This is about data collection. So we got use speech recognition. So use your voice dictation, talk to Cortana and other apps, and use Microsoft's cloud-based thing. Send Microsoft your voice data to help improve your search. Right? I don't want Microsoft to know what I'm saying through my microphone talking to Cortana. So you don't want to use speech recognition because you don't want data being sent to Microsoft. If you do, then you can click use speech recognition. I don't want to, so I'm not going to bother. Let Microsoft send apps use your location. So Microsoft will use location data and improve location services. I don't want them to do that, so I'm going to click no. Find my device. You must sign in to use Microsoft with your account. This is less crucial, but it says Windows won't be able to help keep track of your device if you lose it. I don't particularly need it because I don't use a Find My Device thing anyway. So I'm going to click no and click accept. Send diagnostic data. Regardless of so send required and optional diagnostic data. This basically sends a load of data to Microsoft. So this is required and optional diagnostic data. I don't want to send any more data to Microsoft than necessary. So I'm going to send just required diagnostic data. You can't really stop them from taking that data, but it's just I think it's more for bug trafficking and bug tracking and helping Windows 10 be fixed, like different bugs in its near updates. But I don't want to choose any other optional data, just the basics really. Click accept. Send optional tracking, inking, and type diagnostic data to Microsoft to improve language recognition. I don't want Microsoft to see what I'm typing on my keyboard, so I'm going to click no. Click accept. Get tailored experiences. Let Microsoft use the diagnostic data, excluding information about websites you browse and offer personalized tips. I don't want them to do anything, get any more data off me than they already do, so I'm going to click no. Click next. Advertising ID. Don't want any ads any more than I need to, so I'll just click no on that one. And it just continue with its setup. Do more cross activity history. I don't particularly have any need to do that. If you want to do that, by all means. I don't want Cortana, and it'll start setting up properly. So, in a second, it should just boot up to Windows 10, just like this. And here we are. We got Windows 10 already installed onto the virtual machine, which is good. This is exactly what we want. So that is essentially how you do it. There's a few more other steps that we can do to sort of make Windows 10 a bit more optimized, but it's just about how to install it, and this is all you sort of need. Any more, you can just sort of research it yourself. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's a bit more updated and a bit more thorough than it was beforehand. So I'm happy now that I've got what I've got. So hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content or tutorial sort of thing content. And I shall see you all later. Bye.